The following program contains graphic material, including offensive language.
With me in studio to share their reporting and their insights, Sungmin Kim of the Associated Press, Margaret Taleb of Axios, and NPR's Claudia Grisales. It's interesting, Senator Warnock, there's a lot of character controversies about Hershel Walker right now. Senator Warnock wants to talk about this badge during the debate Friday night. Hershel Walker this morning, again, asked about it again. He reached into his pocket, pulled out an honorary badge. He was asked about it on NBC this morning. Here's the answer.
If anything happened in this county, I have the right to work with the police and getting things done.
Does that have arresting authority, or it's an honorary badge?
It is an honorary badge, but they can call me whenever they want me, and I have the authority to do things for them, to work with them on things.
The National Sheriff's Association said an honorary badge, quote, is for the trophy case. Why make the decision to flash it at the debate?
That is totally not true.
He has no police power. No police power. He can't pull you over, can't arrest you, can't hold you.
What do you say to that, except for the fact that the reason why you see Senator Warnock talking about this is because it plays into this larger characterization that Democrats and the Warnock campaign have tried to relay about Hershel Walker, that he is not a truthful person, that he can't be trusted with the truth. And that's how they sort of tried to make this character attack on him. But I mean, Republicans have tried to use the issue of crime in these campaigns. Yes. This is certainly a novel and kind of hard to believe way of doing so.
It's admirable that he works with local police authorities, whether it's as an ambassador to children, listen to the police officers, and they give him this honorary badge. But to suggest that he can do things besides being an ambassador, that seems outside the lines.
Right, yeah. It's an odd tactic that he's using right now, especially considering all of the controversy, personal controversy he has faced. To now pull out this badge, it kind of goes back to that same theme of truthfulness and where is he lying, where is he telling the truth. And so that gives Warnock ammunition here to focus on this badge, and Walker continues to pull the badge out. I'd put the badge away. It doesn't seem to be helping him. And it just seems to be a target.
I just think there's a more cynical thing going on here, which is that Hershel Walker knows that any image of him holding a badge is going to look like he's with law enforcement, and that's going to help him. Every minute he's talking about a badge that came out of a Captain Crunch box or whatever, he's not talking about the abortion controversy. And number three, when he's talking about the badge, they're talking about crime, and that's what Republicans want to be campaigning on. So, we can sit here and talk about why it's intellectually dishonest, why a voter can look at it and say, that's shocking, he doesn't have police authority. I don't think any of that's at play in his calculations, and he might be right, and that race is within the margin of error.
Right, he says the image is, I'm friendly with the police. I'm on the side of the police, and that's where I want to be in this campaign. It'd be interesting to see if that plays out. In the debate Friday night, there was an exchange over substance. We do actually have substance every now and then in our political campaigns. Senator Warnock, the incumbent here, voted, of course, for the Democratic spending plans that Republicans blame for inflation. Senator Warnock trying to turn the tables on Hershel Walker in the debate, saying, you know what, that vote also lowers prescription drug costs.
He said he would not have voted for the Inflation Reduction Act, and I think he should tell the people of Georgia why he thinks they should have expensive insulin and why the pharmaceutical companies should be able to charge us whatever they like.
Well, first of all, may I respond? I believe in reducing insulin, but at the same time, you got to eat right, because he may not know, and I know many people that's on insulin, and unless you have eating right, insulin is doing you no good. So you have to get food prices down, and you got to get gas down so they can go get insulin.
Hershel Walker trying to take the government out of this, saying that you voted for that bill, it's rising gas prices, food prices. That's more primary to people. Is that the argument?
It's perhaps, but I think you do see how tortured kind of his response was to Senator Warnock's response. And I also think that moment showed why passing that Inflation Reduction Act was so critical for Democrats, even if those benefits don't kick in for years down the road, that they do have a talking point against Republicans. Now Republicans will say that Republicans also believe that's a weapon that they can yield on the campaign trail, but oftentimes it can create these kinds of tortured answers like we saw just there with Hershel Walker.
It's a somewhat tortured answer, especially for those of us who sit here in Washington. You make a key point. How do people process it out in the country? He does not connect the dots. He doesn't say, Senator, we can't afford that spending now, or we can't afford to do that now until we do this. He just goes straight onto the insulin. So people would say, well, wait a minute, what are you trying to do here? Frank Bruni, writing in the Times, Walker's task on Friday night wasn't to make voters excited about him. It was to make them less apprehensive. It was to affirm or reaffirm for them what his lack of charisma, no matter his deficit of coherence, he's a reliable vessel for their concerns. I guess Frank, to some, is trying to say he's a Republican in a Republican year. That's what he's trying, and he's standing there. Is that enough?
It may be, because Republicans may look at Warnock's argument during that debate and say he's looking at what I'm worried about, my personal issues. At the same time, as we saw with Walker, that was a confusing answer there. Warnock used it to say that he's blaming you, the person, for having problems with diabetes, what have you. And so, but in the end, everyone's in their partisan corners, and it may play to their party's base.
Well, we learned a lot in the 2020 race from the early voting trends. We'll see if we start to as we get the trends.
Are you ready? Hey everybody, it's Jeff. So, hope everybody's having a good week here. We're getting rainy weather here the last few days in Maine, and the weather's kind of warm, and we had a huge thunderstorm here a couple nights ago, big one. And I think the lightning must have hit something out in the woods here, because I swore I could have heard a tree come down during one of the strikes. It was a bad lightning storm. That's like the worst rainstorm we've had this year. And the funny thing is it didn't take the power out. As odd as that seems, usually in VZ, whenever we get a storm of any kind, the power flickers and dies, until somebody fixes it. So, anyway, how many of you watched the Hershel Walker debate over the weekend? I watched the first one. Second one, he didn't show. Oddly enough, I think because he got wasted in that first debate there, and I don't think they wanted a repeat performance of that. But I have to say, I think what the Republicans have done here with this man is the most egregious thing they could ever do to somebody, is to throw them out in front of the camera and have them play politics, okay? When it's clear this guy knows nothing about it. He brings nothing to the table as a candidate. He spends more time talking about the oddities in his life, or the contradictions in his life, than he does talking about what he'd like to do, okay? So I'm guessing that he doesn't really have an agenda, because if they would tell him what the agenda is, he'd probably forget it. I mean, that's, his memory is not very good. I mean, he's just, and he's not very coherent either when he's giving an answer to something. He seems like he's all over the map, or he's very evasive on some things, okay, not to directly answer something that, might bring up a question that he's uncomfortable with. But the thing is that, like I was saying, this is ridiculous. The Republican Party putting out this guy who is underqualified, worse than Sarah Palin, I would think. Okay, I mean, Sarah, that's pretty bad. But let's just say on the same level. Okay, for those of you that would think, no, she's worse. Okay, let's just say they're on the same platform. Okay. They're both equally unqualified for the jobs that they ran for in politics. And Hershel Walker, even though he might have been a great sports player, I don't know the guy. I never watched sports, so I can't really say either way. But apparently he's got a good history with sports. In the physical, he's obviously got, lots of kudos there. But God, politics just is not for him. He is not meant for this, okay? He's being forced into this thing. I know he is. I don't know what they promised him, okay? Whatever that might be. Money maybe. And why would they pick him? Why would they want him to run for the Republican part down there in Georgia? Why? There was nobody else that was better qualified to run that. Why? Why did they do this? Yes, Donald Trump kind of endorsed him, I guess, for Georgia, for the GOP, or the Trumplicans, I should say, not the GOP. GOP's dead. The Trumplicans. He endorsed him for his sycophants. And no matter what he's done, even though it's right in the face of what everything that they say they stand for on the abortion issue, he's a contradictory to them. But yet they still back him. There's something wrong with that, okay? And it's just, when you see people that blind, or maybe not blind, maybe it's willful blindness. Maybe that's what it is, willful blindness. When you see people like that, supporting a person who actually does not stand for one thing that the Republicans are for, okay? He's just mouthing back to the people what they've heard from Trump and others like him. Okay, when he's out there doing that stuff, they're setting him up as a bullseye for ridicule. Why does this man deserve that? Like I said, it goes back to, what did they give him? What did they promise him to run for this seat? Okay, and how can they know for sure that they can actually get him in it? That's another thing. If you promise somebody that you're going to do something for them if they run for the seat, then it's obviously precludes the notion that they're going to get it, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't put their money behind this guy. So what the hell is it about Hershel Walker and the Trumplicans that brought them together here and has him running for their purpose in Georgia? What are they going to get out of this? What's he going to get out of this, rather? We know what the Republicans are going to get, but what's he going to get out of this? His character has been questioned since day one here. He's obviously not a very honest person. He's lied about, he's lied about that friggin' badge that he carries around with him like it's some kind of a good luck charm, okay? When it's like what they said, it's only like a honorary badge. It's supposed to be treated like a trophy to hang up on the wall or something, or put in a plaque. It's not meant to be carried around and flashed at people like he's an actual law enforcement. That's impersonating an officer. He's not an officer. But yet he's telling people that he is, or was. Okay, I don't know what the story is. He's always waffling around on that, just like he's waffled around on the abortion thing, where he paid one of his girlfriends to have an abortion. First he denied he did it, and then they produced the check and the fucking card that it came in. Okay, with his signature on it, and it got brought up again in the debate, and he denied it. No, it wasn't for an abortion. It was money for something. He keeps changing the story. He can't be trusted to tell the truth. So his character right there is already being shot to pieces. Okay, and yet the Trumplicans still back him, and that in itself is an odd thing too, because we know how bigoted the Trumplicans are. All right, why would they put their money behind somebody of a black person that they would despise otherwise if they didn't know this guy from anything? You know what I'm saying? If they saw him in a grocery store or something, one of them would probably say something sarcastic or racist to this guy. So, the Trumplican Klansmen there, as you want to call them, they want this guy to run only for their purposes. It's not for his. He's probably going to get some immediate gain out of it in some way, like maybe money or something like that. But other than that, once he gets the seat, he ain't going to be running that seat. It's going to be everybody else that pushed him into it that's going to be running that seat. They're going to tell him how to vote on what and what to say and when to do it. He's just going to be a puppet. That's all he is. That's all he can do. Okay, because he obviously can't formulate a thought or an opinion that's coherent to people listening to him talk. He can't do it. Okay, it reminds me of that. Who was that guy that was running with Ross Perot? That old man. Some of you might remember his name. This goes way back. But that they put this poor old man up on the stage, and he was obviously very out of it. He's so old he couldn't really say or answer things clearly, and he would just start talking about old times and things, and and he would just go on and on. Everybody thought, why did they put this poor old man up on the stage to be victimized like this? Well, that's what I'm saying about this guy here, Herschel Walker. Why did the Republicans put this guy out there to be victimized like this? They must have promised him a whole heap lot of promises, okay, to for him to get out there and do this, unless he was really ignorant and not realizing that he was setting himself up for a fall. Because what happens if he doesn't get that seat? Are they going to still honor whatever promise they made him? I don't know. But like I said, it's really sad. And here is an article that was written here on last Wednesday, I guess, by Michael Cohen here from Daily Beast, entitled "Herschel Walker is the saddest Senate candidate I've ever seen." The Republican U.S. Senate candidate from Georgia, Herschel Walker, last week sent out what might be the saddest tweet in the history of American politics. It's emblematic of a campaign that is among the saddest in recent political history. While criticizing his opponent, incumbent Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock, for, quote, calling law enforcement thugs and bullies, unquote, Walker tweeted that he was, quote, proud to serve the Blue as an honorary agent and special duty sheriff of Cobb County for many years, unquote. Herschel Walker's campaign knows he's a liar and they don't care. Attached to the tweet was a picture featuring Walker's certification as a special deputy sheriff. It looked very much like a designation that law enforcement might hand out to children, or as one member of Congress put it, quote, my son got a Paw Patrol badge. Think that gives you both the same authority, unquote. Here's the picture of the badge. Let me get that here on the video. Okay. Can you see that? That's the badge right there. Yeah. Think of it what you want. Okay. Let's see. Last June, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution wrote about Walker's tendency for exaggeration when it comes to his alleged law enforcement background, and quoted a former DeKalb County District Attorney pointing out that an honorary deputy is like a junior ranger badge. This isn't Walker's first mistruth about his law enforcement background. In 2017, Walker claimed, quote, I've been in criminal justice all my life, unquote. In 2013, he said, quote, I spent time at Quantico at the FBI training school. You all didn't know I was an agent, unquote. None of these statements are true. Repeatedly, news outlets have pointed out Walker's tendency for exaggeration, and yet that didn't stop him from repeating that lie again and exposing himself to even more ridicule. Walker's campaign is increasingly a train wreck, but one that emits sadness and wonderment, not only because those closest to Walker aren't stepping in to rescue him, but because he has a 50-50 chance of actually getting elected. Walker is a lousy candidate who is manifestly unqualified for the job he is seeking. Before announcing his candidacy last year, he never evinced any interest in public policy or government service. The only reason he's even in the running for a Senate seat is that he was a star running back at the University of Georgia and won the Heisman Trophy 4 decades ago. The last time Walker was relevant, the Soviet Union was still going strong. Of course, there's also the fact that Donald Trump endorsed him for the job. To be sure, there are plenty of bad candidates this election cycle who are new to the world of electoral democracy. I'm looking at you, Pennsylvania Senate. When China gets our good air, their bad air got to move. So it moves over to our good airspace, unquote. Walker's solution, quote, "We got to clean that back up," unquote. That is not how air works. According to a report by Georgia Public Broadcasting, Walker had been complaining about China and India's quote-unquote bad air for weeks. In the spring, he publicly wondered why, if evolution is real, there are still apes in the world. He responded to the Uvalde shooting by promising, quote, "a department that can look at young men, that's looking at women, that's looking at social media," unquote, when asked about new gun laws proposed in Congress, the place where Walker aspires to hold a job. Quote, "What I'd like to see, what I'd like to do is see it and everything and stuff," unquote. Walker also famously got caught lying about the number of children he has sired after years of preaching about the evils of absentee parenting. He claimed to have one child, but really he has 4. And that's not the only time Walker has been caught telling untruths. He's repeatedly and extravagantly lied about his business experience. He owes millions of dollars in unpaid loans, and his academic record, he falsely claimed to be his college valedictorian, even though he left college early to play in the NFL. Then there are the most ominous aspects of Walker's past, like the allegation that he held a loaded gun to his wife's head and threatened to blow her brains out. Concerns about Walker's penchant for lying and his mental adroitness are not merely being raised by his political opponents. They are coming from inside the House. According to a Blockbuster Daily Beast piece from earlier this summer, emails and texts from his own campaign advisors show them, quote, discussing how they don't trust Walker, both to tell the truth to them and to handle campaign events properly, and harboring concerns that he isn't mentally fit for the job, unquote. Quote, "He spouts falsehoods like he's breathing," said one advisor. "He's lied so much that we don't know what's true," unquote, said another. One source even called the campaign, quote, "a shit show on a train in the middle of a wreck," unquote, which, truth be told, doesn't make a lot of sense, but also doesn't sound very good. The Beast's report further suggested that aides have, quote, ridiculed his intelligence, unquote. Quote, "fear his mood swings and instability," unquote, and don't trust him, quote, "to speak coherently," unquote, or tell them the truth. Anyone who follows Walker's bizarre statements would likely draw a similar conclusion in his public events. Walker either regurgitates the same 4 or 5 talking points about the evils of Democrats, or he goes off on often incoherent tangents. However, it seems no one around Walker, neither his campaign aides nor his family and friends, seem inclined to intervene and speak out publicly about the dangers of electing him to the Senate. Even more extraordinary and disturbing is that Walker remains not just a viable candidate for the U.S. Senate, he is running neck and neck with Warnock. According to a new poll out this week, he leads Warnock by 3 points. Liz Cheney was brave when the country needed her to be. It's hard to say what is sadder, that a majority of Georgian voters are prepared to send a candidate as utterly ill-equipped as Walker to Washington, or that his fellow Republicans are so desperate to win back control of the Senate that they are ignoring his mountain of personal deficits. Does anyone who has watched Walker on the campaign trail believe that he has the basic cognitive ability to effectively represent Georgia in the U.S. Senate? Does anyone expect him to actively participate in writing bills or debating Senate legislation? Walker's bid for the Senate is yet one more troubling example of where the Republican Party is headed. The mere ability to cast a vote for Mitch McConnell as Senate Majority Leader and demonstrate rhetorical support for Donald Trump are all the qualification one needs to become a Republican senator these days. Experience in government, interest in public policy, the ability to speak coherently on governing issues, and basic competence are not required. Indeed, as Trump showed, the less experience one has, the greater the appeal for Republican voters. As sad as Walker's campaign has become, what is even sadder is what it portends for the country. A political party that is content with having someone like Herschel Walker in the U.S. Senate is not a political party that cares about the responsibility of governing America. And that's true. Republicans are not very good at governing at all, okay? They really aren't. Their history proves it. Okay, they can't point to one thing they've ever done in the past that was successful, that benefited this country or helped it in any way. Okay, all that they've done is get into situations where they are putting things up for grabs, trying to take things away from us, like critical programs, safety net programs, cutting into welfare, screwing around with Medicaid, threatening to, cut into Social Security, things like that. I mean, that's all you ever hear from them. All right, and in the past, they've always gave lots and lots of money to the military. And if you look at it, there's like a pie chart online that you can find that shows the budget and how the budget is split down in that pie. And you're going to find that all the most important things that we should have are really tiny slivers of that pie. And the biggest thing that is spent budget-wise goes to the fucking military. Okay, if it was the other way around, this country would be like Emerald City. If it ever went the other way around, this country would be miraculous. It would be a paradise. Everybody in the world would want to be here, okay? But no, instead, it's the other way around, where we have a military that's, out of control, okay, and awash with money, where they're spending more than they need, okay, and everything else that needs money is getting shoved to the corner, allowing it to die, on the back burner. And that's the way Republicans like to run things, okay? And I feel like, whenever you get a Democrat in there, they spend a lot of time cleaning up the mess the Republicans leave behind, which is what Biden had to do, okay? A lot of things he wanted to do, he couldn't, because he had to spend so much time undoing the things Trump did in order to make it possible to save the country. You think Republicans keep a mental note of that? Of course not. They don't. It's details and facts they don't understand. What they understand is theatrics, okay, and goofy commercials and lies, simplifications of things, bumper sticker slogans. That's basically as far as they can go mentally in the political alley, as it were, okay? And so it's hard to debate these people, because when you tell them something that's more than what they know, they just figure you're snowballing them or something, or you're trying to trick them, so they just assume you're lying. That's the only way they can cogitate on that. So you can't really talk to these people. They don't know, okay? They don't spend the time like the rest of us do looking things up. So they're always at the losing end of an argument, but they walk away feeling like they won. Okay? And that's the funny part of it, is they always think they won. And now they've taken that attitude to the extreme when they go around saying that Trump won the election. I mean, that's the biggest wishful thinking that has ever occurred in American history here, okay? And I can't for the life of me understand how people can still pretend that that's even true when no evidence has ever been shown, okay? And unfortunately, with people like that, you can't win an argument, because stubbornness is what keeps them thinking the way they do. And it's a hard fucking rock to break when you're fighting against stubbornness. All right, let's go to commercial break. We'll be right back.
This is me.
This is me.
This is me!
This is me.
I'm Alex Curtis. I'm a lobsterman in Maine, and this is me.
I'm Ruth McLaughlin, and this is me.
I'm Eric Hopkins. I'm an artist, and this is me.
This is me.
Me.
This is me.
This is me.
This is me.
At the end of the journey, the main thing is you, original.
Some people have a deep, abiding respect for the natural beauty that was once this country. And some people don't. People start pollution. People can stop it. Write for Pollution Booklet, Box 1771, Radio City Station, New York.
Be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it. It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show. I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
Okay, everybody, welcome back. Cracks and bleeds. Hair so dry. I'll tell you, it was dry hair when I had my echocardiogram done here a couple weeks ago. When I was at Eastern Maine. And I had to get on the treadmill. I didn't have to wear the mask, obviously, because they want you to be able to breathe because they're checking out your heart. So they took it off. But when I started walking on the treadmill, the air, my throat just dried right up, and I was like, "Whoa!" I mean, I couldn't even talk. I said, "I need some water," and I was trying to say it, and they went and got me some water, and when I got it in, I was like, "My God, the air is so dry in here." So the minute I started moving, I said the friggin' air I was inhaling was just drying my friggin' throat out, couldn't believe it. I said, God, this is crazy, so when I'm outside and I'm walking around, this isn't the way air is. I mean, I don't I said this isn't right. But yeah, it was God. It actually hurt when I tried to swallow. My throat dried out. I mean, it was like just a couple of inhales, and all of a sudden my throat just locked right up. It was so dry. It's like, oh my God, you guys gotta do something about the air in this place. Hospitals can be clean, sure, and bacteria free, but Jesus, they take that to a obsession there in some parts. Okay, another thing here that went on here is Marjorie Taylor Greene. She had a debate. And, you know, her big mouth was out there on Sunday. And she said she had nothing to do with what happened on January the 6th, okay? Because that happened, like, a few days after she got her seat here. And the thing of it is it didn't matter when she got her seat, okay? That's a moot point. The point is she was out way before that where she got that seat, and she was already arguing for Trump and saying that the election was stolen, okay? And she was actively pursuing trying to get the election, the elected ballots revoted, you know, recounted or something, and trying to overturn the election before she even got her seat in January, all right? So she tried to distract from the fact that she had done this, but the media already, you know, contradicted her by showing clips of, you know, interviews that she had with reporters as she was walking out of the damn Capitol steps here, and saying how they're going to be addressing the voter fraud that went on, you know, and everything, and you know, so she was totally behind Trump's allegation that the election was stolen from him, okay, and feeding into the hysteria that was building at the time to January the 6th. Now, it was pretty high pitched, you know, at the time, November, December, and then January, okay? So right around those last couple of months of the year, it was really picking up a lot of strength here along the lines of pro-Trump supporters. So let me read this article here. It's written by Hershel Walker, written 20 hours ago, and it's entitled, "Here are all of Marjorie Taylor Greene's January 6 text messages with Mark Meadows." During a debate on Sunday night, Firebrand Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene from Georgia insisted she had, quote, nothing to do with what happened, unquote, on January 6. That's simply not true. Text messages she appears to have exchanged with President Trump's former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows indicate Greene was involved in organizing the efforts to overturn the 2020 election at the U.S. Capitol that day. You can read all of those texts here for the first time. And this is, this is hunterwalker.substack.com. That's his website where you can find this article here. The texts also indicate that without any evidence, Greene tried to blame the violence that took place alongside the push to reverse Trump's loss on far-left, quote-unquote, Antifa activists. Other messages show Greene working to defend Trump against impeachment charges for inciting the violence. Greene delivered an angry rebuttal on the debate stage when her Democrat Party opponent, Marcus Flowers, accused her, quote-unquote, participation in, quote, the events on January the 6th, unquote. Quote, "You cannot accuse me of insurrection. I was a victim of the January 6th riot just as much as any other member of Congress," unquote, Greene said. Then adding, quote, "That was the third day I had on the job. I had nothing to do with what happened there that day, and I will not have you accuse me of that. That is wrong of you to do. You're lying about me, and you will not defame my character in that manner," unquote. However, there is already ample public evidence that Greene was involved in the efforts to protest and overturn Trump's loss on January the 6th. Greene was one of 147 Republican members of Congress who voted against the electoral certification that day. Those Republicans objected despite the fact a slew of officials and experts, including Trump's own Attorney General, have declared there was no credible evidence of widespread fraud in the 2020 election. Greene was also a top advertised speaker at the quote-unquote wild protest, which was one of the major demonstrations against the electoral certification that was planned by Trump supporters in Washington that day. The wild protest drew crowds to the Capitol, but it ultimately did not proceed as Trump supporters brawled with law enforcement and stormed into the building. I have obtained the 2,319 messages Meadows provided to the House Select Committee investigating the January 6th attack. Those texts, which are only a partial sampling of his communications, apparently included 16 different messages identified as being exchanged between him and Green. Meadows, Green, and spokespeople for the committee did not immediately respond to requests for comment on the story. In quote-unquote The Breach, a book I co-wrote with Denver Riggleman, a former Republican congressman and advisor to the committee, we detailed how Meadows' text messages were acquired. We also described how Riggleman and other committee investigators identified the people who were texting with Meadows with a high degree of confidence. The identification of Green was based on this work. For this story, I kept all of the original spelling and grammar as it appeared in the text log, apart from changing tokens that seemed to replace apostrophes. Green was elected in 2020 and sworn in on January 3rd of 2021. Her first message in Meadows' log was dated December the 31st, 2020, 7 days before the Capitol attack. In the text, Green suggested she was working to get members of Congress to object to the election results on January the 6th. Green also indicated she had met with Trump's attorney, Rudy Giuliani, who at the time was working with Trump campaign to promote baseless conspiracy theories about Trump's election loss and to file lawsuits against the results. Quote, "Good morning, Mark. I'm here in D.C. We have to get organized for the 6th. I would like to meet with Rudy Giuliani again. We didn't get to speak with him long, so anyone who can help," unquote. Green wrote, adding, quote, "We are getting a lot of members on board and we need to lay out the best case for each state. I'll be over at CPI this afternoon," unquote. In the breach, we revealed that Representative Jim Jordan from Ohio was working out of the Conservative Partnership Institute, a right-wing group in Washington, D.C. that later employed Meadows as he led efforts to block the electoral certification in Congress. Green's initial text appears to be a reference to this organization. In her debate with Flowers, Green suggested she had unspecified evidence of quote-unquote election fraud. Green's next text to Meadows in the log he provided the committee were a pair dated January the 5th, the day before the attack. In those texts, Green also claimed to have evidence of, quote, dead voters, unquote, in her home state. Green indicated she had spoken with Senator Lindsey Graham, South Carolina, about the election and felt he would be swayed by her alleged evidence. Quote, "Last night, Senator Graham told me that if I found 100 names of dead voters in Georgia that he would object. I have 100 dead voters' names," unquote. Green wrote to Meadows before firing off a second message, quote, "Tell President Trump," unquote. Based on the log, Meadows' reply was almost instantaneous. Quote, "Send them to him," unquote. Meadows wrote, adding, quote, "Do you have Senator Graham's contact?" unquote. Green said she had his cell. Meadows seemed to encourage her to use it. "Yes," Meadows said. Ultimately, Graham was not one of the 8 Republican senators who objected to the electoral certification on January the 6th amid debates at the Capitol that were interrupted by the violence. Spokespeople for Graham did not immediately respond to requests for comment. In April, CNN first published some of Green's text messages with Meadows, including this exchange. One of the messages that was first reported by CNN came from Green on January the 6th, as the violence was underway. In it, she urged Meadows to have Trump calm people. Quote, "Mark, I was just told there is an active shooter on the first floor of the Capitol. Please tell the president to calm people. This isn't the way to solve anything," unquote, Green wrote. According to the log, that text was sent at 2:28 p.m. Trump did not make any public attempt to quell the violence until an hour and 49 minutes later. An hour and 24 minutes after making an appeal for calm, Green texted Meadows a new conspiracy theory. Quote, "Mark, we don't think these attackers are our people," unquote, she wrote. Quote, "We think they are Antifa, dressed like Trump supporters," unquote. So she was trying to give them sort of an explanation to throw at the press if there were ever question about it, okay? So her mind is going in 18 different directions here while she's thinking about how we can protect the Republican Party here from what's going on. In the breach, we noted how Green was one of several Trump allies who promoted this idea in the aftermath of the violence. There has been no credible evidence of any large-scale involvement in the attack by left-wing activists. Green repeated that idea in a lengthy message to Meadows dated the morning of January the 7th. Quote, "Yesterday was a terrible day. We tried everything we could in our objection to the 6 states. I'm sorry nothing worked. I don't think that President Trump caused the attack on the Capitol. It's not his fault. Antifa was mixed in with the crowd and instigated it, and sadly people followed. But when people try everything and no one listens and nothing works, I guess they think they have no other choice. Absolutely no excuse, and I fully denounce all of it. But after shutdowns all year and a stolen election, people are saying that they have no other choice. I defended Trump last night on Newsmax. He has been the greatest president. I will continue to defend him and you if anyone attacks you. I hope you are okay. I feel badly for everyone," unquote. Meadows evidently appreciated her thoughts, in which she said, "Thanks, Marjorie," he wrote. Based on the log, Green wrote Meadows again on the morning of January the 10th as members of Congress considered impeaching Trump for inciting the violence. That message was first reported in The Breach, where Reed described it as an ominous text that landed somewhere between a warning and a threat. Quote, "Hey, I need to talk with President Trump. People are freaking out. The messages I'm getting show extreme fear of what is about to happen," unquote, Green wrote. Quote, "I think some of their fears are warranted. However, these extreme fears could lead to out-of-control actions. Someone call me," unquote. Green texted Meadows again the following day. She was evidently angry about the looming impeachment. Quote, "I'm upset about that GOP conference call tonight. They want us to be quiet, not say anything. They are not going to tell people to vote against impeachment, and they are talking about censuring the president. They just want to welcome Biden in peacefully. This is the Democrat Party that aggressively attempted a coup the entire time Trump was in office. They are trying to impeach for a second time for nothing. He did not cause the attack on the Capitol. Leadership is clueless about how the American people feel. They complained about the security at the Capitol and their lives being in danger. I told them when I talked we should care about the American people who have dealt with riots and Antifa, BLM riots all year and had their businesses shut down, lost jobs, and can't function normally. It's like they don't even care about anyone but themselves. I will not be quiet. I will not go along to get along. And I'm coming out swinging against these evil Democrats. That was the most disappointing call I've ever heard," unquote. CNN's initial report did not include either of those messages from Green. Green's final message and Meadows' log were dated the evening of January the 17th, 2021. In the first message, which was not previously reported by CNN, she seemed to be expressing frustration after facing social media bans. Green suggested those bans were due to her highlighting thoroughly debunked conspiracy theories about voting machines, as well as information about President Joe Biden and his son Hunter. Quote, "Banned for 12 hours for calling out our state leaders for changing nothing in our elections and losing our Senate seats, and calling out Dominion machines, saying why they are suing everyone. If they just do forensic audits, then they will show nothing is wrong and there is no need for lawsuits, and talking about Biden and Burisma and Hunter's laptop," unquote, Green wrote. 5 minutes later, Green sent a message that was reported by CNN where, despite a spelling error, she appeared to be advocating for martial law. Quote, "In our private chat with only members, several are saying the only way to save our republic is for Trump to call for martial law. I don't know on those things. I just wanted you to tell him," unquote, Green wrote. Quote, "They stole this election. We all know they will destroy our country next. Please tell him to declassify as much as possible so we can go after Biden and anyone else." Green defeated her first Democratic Party opponent by nearly 50 points in 2020. She is widely expected to beat Flowers in the upcoming general election on November the 8th. So all this here and a whole lot more shows that she very much was a part of the January 6th mess. Okay, she was right in there with it, with all her messages and making promises and threats of her own to take action. But you see, the truth doesn't matter to people like her. Okay, all that matters is what people will believe at that moment. If she tells them that she knew nothing about the January 6th thing, then the people will say, okay, she didn't know. Even though there might be a mountain of evidence that says otherwise, they're going to pretend they never saw it. That evidence was already presented in the January 6th hearing, so we know, the public knows, that she was involved, okay? But the Trump supporters, their brains are like mush, okay? They're like the crowd in the movie 1984, where they're told to believe something, then the next day they're said, you know, don't believe that didn't happen. And so they erase their memory somehow, and then now they believe the new story, okay? That's how these people are. You know, they're like willing receptacles for having their minds fucked, you know? And the Republicans are doing their damnedest to keep their party in line for when they need them, when they need their votes. Now, for those of you out there who think, oh, well, the voting isn't going to matter, you know, and why should we get involved? Well, let me tell you why you should get involved. Because it matters to the Republicans, that's why. If the voting system is so corrosive to them and it doesn't, or to us, and it didn't mean anything, why are they spending so much time, effort, and money on rigging this thing so that way they can gain more out of the end result? It's obvious. They fear what's going to happen, especially after they got the Supreme Court to overturn Roe versus Wade. They're scared shitless that, you know, there's going to be a tsunami of friggin' blue voters coming out, and they're going to, you know, it's going to cost Republicans seats. And, you know, the Democrats are not going to keep hammering this fact right up until November. So, yes, it does matter. And that's how you know that it does matter, is because the other side is scared to death about what's going to turn out for voting on that day. You know, they're scared of how many people will show. You know, they're trying to tell people that, oh, young people are not getting into this election this year and shit like that. That's bullcrap. Voter registration is through the fucking roof right now in this country. So that means we're going to see a huge amount of people voting. This is exactly what happened before Trump lost his election. We saw this massive group of voter registrations take place in the country that obviously got the media's attention because they wouldn't shut up about it for days, okay? And then when the election happened, it was a landslide victory for Biden. You know, Trump lost huge, okay? And so, you know, they're worried that's going to happen again. I mean, they're seeing the signs. And, you know, like I've said before, it's only their fault that it's happening because they don't know how to talk about the issues that people are really thinking about, not the ones they want them to think about, okay? The Republicans are always out there trying to create problems that aren't there, so that way they can go and solve them and claim that they're doing their job. And all along, it's not anything that was ever a problem until they made something of it. You know, that's what they do. And so Marjorie Taylor Greene is just one of those kinds of people who cannot govern, but she's very good at spinning lies and the truth, and, you know, and basically bullying people, so that way she gets her way. And yeah, being from Georgia, yeah, she's probably going to win that seat back. You know, Georgia is Georgia, you know. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get rid of her for a while. But you can bet that people on the left, we'll just say, won't really take anything she says as the gospel, okay? We're always going to question what she says. We're always going to backtrack everything she says. And, you know, that's the kind of thing that's going to happen with her. Now, no one's ever going to believe anything she says, okay, especially when it concerns January the 6th, and anything that she says thereafter. She made her bed, her character is shit, all right, and she doesn't seem to give a shit about that, which only makes her character even worse. That means she has no shame. So anyone that has no shame and already has a bad reputation with her mouth, that person is crap in this country from evermore. All right, so anyway, that's it for today, and I hope everyone has a great rest of the week. So take care. Please keep your ears open for any COVID-19 news and monkeypox news, and subscribe and comment. I'd like to hear from you. And treat each other nice out there, okay? Politicians aren't very good at it, it seems, but the rest of us don't have to be like that. We don't have to follow their lead. Doing that only gets us in trouble, apparently. But try and show each other some kindness and courtesy out there, especially as we get closer to the holidays. It's important that we try to come back to our basics here about what humanity should mean to us. I think right now, where our country's so divided, we really need to focus a lot more on that. So take care, everybody. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.